Hi, Nick.
Hello.
Good to see you.
That was quick. It feels like 5 minutes ago we were recording the other one. Good to see
From
you.
a 3 week hiatus to what happened? Where did the week go? Welcome to the long and short of it, where we are taking our next step in performance. We're talking about leveling, the intersection of performance and leveling. Very riveting stuff. But I think it's
Yeah.
timely, right? Because a lot of people are just wrapping up their performance reviews, getting a lot of feedback, whether they want it or not, and thinking about what do I do now between end of year and Q1 if we're running it again, or Q2 when we'll be running it again. But before we get into it, what's news? What's happening?
What have I been up to? So much. Birthdays, birthday parties, funerals. Just like, I know, I
Highs and
know.
lows.
It
Yeah.
highs and lows. Highs and lows. It's interesting how every few months these things happen. It's part of life, right? You just
Mhm.
have like these extremities and you find yourself in different environments performing a different function.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm performing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I share that in the sense that I'm being, happy at a birthday party, sad at a funeral, like genuine emotions, but I feel like I'm nowhere in the middle. Am I like just being
Mhm.
like neutral, zero things on my mind,
Yeah.
zero emotions. I just want to sit and just be. So
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to doing some of that this weekend.
Good. You
Yeah,
deserve it.
it's important because it's that mental burnout. It's not like
Yeah.
being busy, but it's just that mental exhaustion bouncing between different
Yeah.
states.
And holding them at the same time, right?
Yeah,
So it's
definitely. Like it's not either or, it's all of these things exist at once.
coexist. Yeah. I feel so.
Um, yeah. I've also been I've continued watching The Resident on Netflix.
Okay. Good.
And so I'm like, my obsession with the human brain and neurosurgery and neuroscience keeps going up every time a doctor on that show says, we need a neuro consult.
So complete opposite of my Love Island obsession. Going, well, how many brain cells do these people have? It's pretty bad. Oh,
Honey,
that's exciting.
you're still watching that?
Not really. No.
Uh,
I mean, it's on in the background, but
yeah,
pretty bad. It's hard to watch.
yeah. What have
But
you been up to?
what have we been up to? I mean, in traditional American celebrations, Halloween, had a
Yes.
zombie prom queen on my hands. She had a great time, and we had about 75 kids. And maybe topical for what we're discussing today, but I had a lot of kids that would come up, and it was a complete mix of the kids that would say, "How many can I have?" Right. Like I'd hand out the candy and I'd be like, chips or candy? And they're like, how many can I have? I'm like, well, one. And then they take two anyways, right? Like there were those kids. And then there were the kids that were super polite and wouldn't even like put their hand in the candy. They would wait until I gave them some.
Oh,
It made me think about like people at work, and when we think about promotion leveling, there's the people who are always asking for it or pushing for more, even if you set an expectation. And then there's the people who never ask for it and deserve it, but don't advocate for themselves, and their manager maybe doesn't pick up on those cues. And
yeah,
so
that's so true.
I think that's where we come into performance management and leveling. So maybe we can, I don't know, that was a great segue.
Nice
Talk
segue.
about
Were
that.
you analyzing the neighborhood kids as they were coming up and you're like, you're a future PNC nightmare. You're a good
Or
employee.
I've got intel too because my husband's the ethics teacher. So I'm like, oh, I've heard about you. Or like the secret, sorry, Maddie, the secret crush came by and she wasn't here. And I'm like, oh, hey, I know you. I hear a lot about you.
So
So it
funny.
was really funny. But yes, totally analyzing these children over a cider and eating some of the candy, but it was good.
Yeah,
So yeah,
lots of candy going on. Still going.
I know it has to
Oh,
be
good.
thrown out. But
Good.
yeah, so I'm curious. I mean, do you want to start us off about your thoughts on leveling and the intersection of performance? And then I'll just steal the
You,
mic.
yeah, you go for it. You
Okay,
go for it.
I'll go first. So, something that I see happen a lot in companies is the intersection of this getting conflated. Normally, what I see when things aren't working is a performance rating scale that doesn't just cover, are you performing well in your role, in your level against your expectations? But when you're overperforming, there's an expectation that you're performing at the next level. And that is inherently, in my mind, flawed, because what ends up happening is, to get a 5, let's call it a 5-point scale. In order to get a 5, you are already performing at the next level, but you're not being rewarded for it. So that should mean I'm getting promoted.
Yeah.
But the reality is, it's based off of existing performance in the existing role, not necessarily expectations set for the next level.
Mhm.
So it gets really murky. And I've seen this happen a lot. I had one client last year who had a 3-point scale, and same thing. If you're a 3, you should be getting promoted. And I'm like, well, how many people got 3s? And it's like, well, half the company. It's like, that's not sustainable, nor is it probably real, because they hadn't done leveling at that point. So I think leveling comes into play, one, to set very clear expectations for folks of what does it mean to go from associate to senior associate, or from a generalist to a manager, or whatever it is in the nomenclature of that particular job family. And then it allows the manager to say, this is what I expect at a level 1 or a level 2 or a level 3. The reality is, every company makes this up. It doesn't look the same. And so people get these weird associations, like, oh, if I'm a level 1, that means I'm super junior. And so I like to say, yes, it's fun to recreate the wheel, but like, try and keep it as far away from a rating scale as possible. If you can, associate it with the titles themselves, not numbers or letters. Occasionally on the back end, yes, we need that because it ties to compensation, which we'll talk about in a future session. But if you're able to say, in our company, we have 5 IC levels, individual contributor levels, and we have 5 management levels, and here's what it generally looks like to achieve each level. You can do that as a company. And then you can also do it on a functional basis and say, within your function, this is what it means. And I think that's really helpful for people, just generally from a transparency standpoint, knowing like, it's not in my manager's brain, but it's on paper, and now I can manage to it. And then when we get to these awkward performance ratings in the review, it's very clear that your performance rating is based on your current level. If you're ready for a promotion, that's a different conversation, but it's happening sort of at the same time, because we've been having the conversations about what it would take to get there. And the chances are you could have someone who is just meeting expectations on the leveling scale or on the rating scale, but also ready for promotion. That happens. So you don't have to be like the top 10% performer to be ready for promotion. And I think that's where it's very helpful for folks to just think deeply about what it means when you're setting up your rating scales and educating folks. And then also when you're building out your leveling, being mindful of not creating too much hierarchy too fast. We've all heard of the holacracy, or like no management framework. It sounds great in theory. It doesn't work, but there is something to be said for keeping as flat of a structure as possible for as long as possible. So that's my brain dump on that, but I'm curious, Nick, on your thoughts too.
Nice. Before I share, what do you think about performance ratings in general?
I love them,
Mhm.
but I say that with like a grain of salt, because I think so often we think we're giving clear signal to someone as to whether they're meeting expectations or not. Holistically, I call it macro feedback. Like, on a macro level, are you achieving what you need to achieve, or are you struggling, or are you about to be put on a PIP? A lot of people don't know when you ask them if they know where they are, and it goes into confidence. So you have the overconfident people who think they're excelling and they're ready for the next step, and actually they're struggling. And you have other people who are doing a great job, but they don't get enough positive reinforcement for what they need. And then they are concerned that they're not performing. And so I like using ratings in that sense. I want people to know where they stand. As far as like the difference between a 3 or 4 or 5-point scale, my thoughts on this has been evolving quite a lot over the last few years, but I like the idea of a 3-point scale that's employee facing. And it literally is, you're struggling to meet consistent expectations for your role. You are mostly meeting expectations of your role. And I kind of bucket that in 2 camps. You've got the people who are new to their role and developing, or you have people who they just have that one thing that's holding them back. And that's going to be the thing that gets in the way of their promotion or their ability to collaborate really well. And you want to be able to address it, because if it continues, it might not be like performance improvement plan worthy, but it's certainly going to be something that's in their way and
Yep.
becomes frustrating. And then you are delivering quality work for the expectations of your level and role. And I would not go beyond that on an employee facing scale, purely because I've seen VPs of companies leave because they don't get exceeding expectations. And I think it's so silly. It actually, in what is meant to be a motivator of like, you're a top performer at this company, becomes a demotivator. And the link there to differentiate people who are just meeting versus overperforming or whatever you want to call it, I think that plays more into the intersection with compensation and how you distribute your budget more so than the ratings themselves in the performance review. And that's where I say employee facing ratings, I would do a 3-point scale. As far as manager calibrations, I think that's where a 5-point scale makes sense, but it's very specific. And again, it can't just be like they're performing at the next level. It has to be something like, I'm looking at their level of productivity without burning out, or I'm looking at their capacity to take on new and different challenges that help our business grow capabilities. Like those things I think make sense versus more generic, like often achieving or always achieving or whatever it ends up being. Bar raiser. I've been guilty of
Yeah.
using all those terms, but that's where my thought is today in 2024.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that advice. I think I agree with it. But in terms of linking that back to leveling and promotions, I agree it's two separate tracks.
Mhm.
Often, I don't know what you've been finding. I'd love to hear what you've found in your scale up and startup experience in the US, especially if um, promotions were something that was sort of like overused, or leveling, moving through the levels was overused, and taken to the extreme. I think that's my initial experience in past years in the Australian ecosystem. I think we've been compensating for not having or trying to attract in a once upon a time in a difficult market. We're sort of back there a little bit anyway, where you're trying to attract top talent to the startup ecosystem, and you're like, come and learn. You learn so much. We're scrappy. You get to do so much. You learn so much on the job. You learn from the founders. You learn from great colleagues. Do your best work. And therefore, we're going to promote you every 6 months or 12 months to show you that there's career progression.
Yeah.
And that's one of the big selling points of the ecosystem. I'm generalizing, but is often not balanced in the sense that when you get a promotion, you're doing different duties. Do they align to what we actually need as a
Yeah.
company? That's a business need, or we're promoting you because we promised we would promote you because you took a lower salary to join a startup, and now we're stuck catching up and promoting you.
Yeah.
So linking, I know we've got a separate episode coming up on comp and reward and money, but
Mhm.
that often I find that that's the company trying to catch up for giving someone a lower salary when they first joined.
Yeah.
My advice is remunerate the right skills at the right level from the beginning. Don't play catch up,
Mhm.
and don't over engineer this promotion process to
Yeah.
keep rewarding people. Also, 6 monthly promotions or increases of massive increases of salary, they may have been a thing when the economy was great and that was your way of keeping talent, but that's not how it happens in the
Mhm.
outside of the startup bubble. That is not how it happens. So I
Yeah.
think it's time to reset some expectations and to be clear that it's not that easy. It shouldn't be that quick, and it shouldn't
Yeah.
be that
Yeah.
easily done. I feel like we've over indexed on that rather than what does the business need.
Totally. And every stage company has a different
Mm.
test, right? Of titling. Head of titles, perfect example. This is what I see in the US. There's absolutely title inflation. Leveling inflation, not so much. So when I
Mm.
look at what someone's actual level is and what they're paid, again, comp related, it's actually fine. It's what their title is. So for example, I'll get back to head of, but I had social media manager, right? That's a typical entry level title for someone handling socials in a startup. And they were at a coordinator level, had been at the company a couple years, and had maybe moved to like an associate or a whatever you want to call it before manager level 2. And then when we had the conversations about leveling, they're like, hold on, I've been here 2 years. Shouldn't I be like level 5 by now? Because I started at level 3. And it's like, well, no, you started at a level 3 title, but in terms of experience and all the ways that we describe it, and it's tied to compensation, you're at level 1 at that point. And so it is about transparency and sharing that. I think as long as you're clear, like we're going to give you a more senior title, but that's reflective of a 10 or 20 person startup, not a 100-person company. That's really important. I remember when I was a director of people at Dollar Shave Club and we had 400 employees. So it was a probably standard scale up director level. And I had maybe at that point in time 8 years experience. But then I went to Unilever for a conference and met all these like managers who had 25 years experience. And they were all like, director, huh? Like that is not a thing in our ecosystem of titles. And it's just a difference between corporate and startup. And so I think taking that with a grain of salt and recognizing a title is a title, like you can call yourself head of whatever. In startup world, it's becoming less of a thing. It's more of a thing for candidates and your LinkedIn and sure. But as to how you're leveled, I would just guide people to say, don't be naive and do your research so that you are fairly compensated. To your point, pay the right price for the right role at the right time, but understand where you are so that you're advocating for the right things and you seem educated on the stuff when you're going and advocating for yourself. Head ofs can be, by the way, manager all the way through to VP. What I find though in the US is by the time you actually make VP, which is a very coveted title, you will not take a head of title because you're like, why would I take something that covers manager like 3 or 4 levels down from where I am to where I am now? And so oftentimes you'll see first time managers love the head of title because it's like power for the first time. And so it's like, I am head of this. And it's like, but I am a team of one. And that's fine, you know. But I think if you're using the head of title, which is a very strategic play for startups, and I would advocate for it, the key is being mindful and sharing with the person the evolution of that head of. For example, you might be head of talent or recruiting today in a 10-person company. Fast forward 12 months, you're 50, 60 people, and you need to hire a true director. Then you bring in that person and they become the head of talent. And that former head of talent becomes head of business recruiting or head of technical recruiting or whatever you want to call it. Head of recruiting operations. You can be head of whatever, but just to show what is their specialization as they go from generalist to specialist is key.
Yeah, definitely. You made me think about how much I hate titles right now at this point in my career.
Yeah.
Um, and maybe showing my age. I'm still not through my aging crisis, by the way. I think we need
It's
a
only been
whole
a week.
episode.
You're fine.
We need a whole episode on that. But I think back to like 20 years ago when I was like, I need to be a PNC business partner. And I need to be, I need that senior, word in front of that word. And I need this title. And so having empathy for someone who's at the start of their career,
Yep.
not, been there, done that, they're over job titles.
Yeah. Yeah.
Having empathy for someone in terms of what leveling and titles mean to them, because it's a means to an end. They're on their way to somewhere, on their way to something that's important. But also giving them the gift of feedback, because if you start to think of yourself as this level and you go, oh, I don't do this, it's under, it's beneath me, it's
Yeah.
not in my job description, it's not in my leveling, it's not in my competency description, I'm not going to do this thing, then you're skipping a few steps in terms of experience and skills. So forget the ego, park that at the door, forget the damn title, make sure that your skills and the experience you're getting is matching what, you're not missing steps along the way. Because often you'll climb that ladder so quickly and you get to a point where you're like, oh, I don't know how to do that thing because I skipped that bit once upon a time, and now I need to rely on people to do that for me all the time, or it's going to be a showstopper for me in my career.
Yeah.
That's the crucial piece along the way. Don't let
Mhm.
your ego get in.
Yeah.
Realize that you're using titles, as a means to an end, as I said. Don't
Yeah.
let them get in the way and to get the best of your ego.
Yeah, I totally agree because they can actually hold you back. Like I've seen several people chase the senior title and they get to senior director or VP in startup land. And then they go to change jobs and they can't get in because if they're applying for the level that they think they are, they're too junior. They're actually probably more of a manager level. But if they take a step back and take the title hit, it's an ego bruise and they don't want to do that either. And so they end up stuck until they find that head of title that they're willing to take. So it's just interesting. Having empathy for it, like you said, but also just being mindful that like maybe I'm at the top of this mountain and leveling at this company and I'll take a step back at the next one, but that'll allow me to continue growing. And I've seen several companies where a manager or even like an associate is paid more than a head of, just because of the size and scale of the organization. And so, yeah, I think leveling has its place. I think people want to know. They don't necessarily want to know I'm a P2 or I'm a P3, but like what's between me and the next level? That's what people care about. And am I paid fairly? Am I compensated fairly for what I'm doing? And so
That's true.
we'll get to that after competencies, but I think that's the key. So if I had to wrap up, I'd say don't conflate your rating scales with promotion readiness. Have manager calibrations that are around distributing the budget for performance of the past year, plus approving promotions and calibrating what a good promotion looks like and readiness looks like. It's not like I survived or I'm doing a great job in the level I'm at, but is there truly a need for the next level? Because I've seen people get promoted in title, but their scope doesn't change and they're demotivated and they leave anyways. And so thinking about what motivates that person is key.
Very true.
Yeah.
Thanks for all your wisdom today.
You too. I feel like I
Fun
talked
as
a lot.
always.
Yeah,
No, that was
it's
awesome.
always fun.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. And I'm excited to go into competencies. If you're thinking about leveling and you're like, where do I even start? Great place, levels.fyi. It's an awesome tool to be able to see the comparison. Like, oh, I'm talking to an engineer at, I don't know, Meta, and they say they're a P7. What is that in my leveling world? Or how do I start to think about that? You can do cross comparisons on levels and start to formulate your own thoughts on what your company leveling should look like.
Nice one.
Awesome. Thanks, Nick. Good to see you.
You too. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.